When I bought my house in the quiet cul-de-sac of Oak Ridge Meadows, I thought I was buying peace. I had spent 20 years in the city, dealing with traffic, noise, and neighbors who thought 3 a.m. karaoke was a lifestyle. So when I moved to a tidy suburban community, with tree-lined sidewalks and neatly mowed lawns, I figured I'd finally found calm. I was wrong. Because Oak Ridge Meadows wasn't peaceful, it was ruled by the HOA, and more specifically, by Karen Whitmore, the self-proclaimed queen of community standards. Karen wasn't just any HOA president, she was the HOA president, the kind of woman who carried a clipboard more religiously than a Bible. She patrolled the streets like a sheriff, measuring grass height, photographing unauthorized decorations, and reporting trash cans left out, past regulation hours. I had no issue following the rules, until she started making me her personal project. Chapter 1. The First Knock. It started innocently enough. My first trash day in Oak Ridge, I rolled my can to the curb on Wednesday night, as the notice said, no earlier than 6 p.m. before collection day. I double-checked the rules twice just to be sure. The next morning, I came outside to find my trash can tipped over, its contents, bags of moving boxes, old rags, and packing tape, strewn across my driveway. At first, I thought maybe a raccoon had gotten into it. But the lid was still locked shut. Then I saw her, Karen, in her pastel pink jogging suit, standing across the street with her little white dog. She smiled that kind of smile that said I did something petty and I'm proud of it. "Morning," she called, waving. "Looks like you had a little accident." I stared at the can, then at her. "Guess the wind got it." Yes," she said, tilting her head. "Though maybe if you had a smaller bin, it wouldn't be such an eyesore." That was my first clue. Chapter 2. The Pattern. Over the next few weeks, it happened again and again. Every Thursday morning, my trash can was either knocked over, rolled into the street, or mysteriously turned sideways in front of my driveway. It only ever happened to mine. I tried to outsmart it. I placed it behind my mailbox. I weighted the bottom with a cinder block. I even left a security camera out once, though it malfunctioned that night. Someone had unplugged it from the extension cord. Then, one Saturday morning, I saw her to it. I was sipping coffee by my front window when Karen strutted down the street on her usual morning patrol. Clipboard in one hand, dog leash in the other. She stopped in front of my driveway, looked both ways, and with one dainty nudge of her foot, tipped my trash can over. Then she snapped a photo. That was the day I knew. This wasn't about trash. It was about control. Chapter 3. The HOA Complaint. A few days later, I received a letter from the HOA. Greater than, Dear Mr. Wilson, it has come to our attention that your trash receptacle has repeatedly fallen into the street, posing a safety and visual hazard to the community. Please secure your bin properly in accordance with HOA standards. Failure to comply may result in fines. I laughed out loud reading it. Karen had knocked it over and then reported me for it. I called the HOA office, which was really just a phone number that went straight to Karen's voicemail. "This is Tom Wilson from 1473 Maple," I said after the beep. "I've received a letter about my trash can. The only reason it's been knocked over is because you keep doing it. I've got eyes, Karen." No response. But the next week, my mailbox contained another note, handwritten this time, in the flowery script only a passive-aggressive HOA president could perfect. Greater than, perhaps your trash can wouldn't be a problem if it weren't so large for your property. HOA guidelines recommend keeping community aesthetics consistent. I almost crumpled it up, but instead, I smiled. Because that's when the idea hit me. Chapter 4. The Plan. If Karen wanted a war over trash, I'd give her one she wouldn't forget. I wasn't a vengeful man by nature, but I was a contractor by trade. I knew my way around concrete, rebar, and a wheelbarrow. So, the next trash day, I got to work. I filled my bin, not with garbage, but with 6 80-pound bags of Quikrete concrete mix. Once it was nearly full, I added just enough water to harden it into a solid, immovable block. When it cured, that thing must have weighed close to 400 pounds. To the naked eye, it looked like any other trash can, black, lidded, unassuming. But inside, it was pure rock. The next morning, I wheeled it to the curb as usual, whistling as I went. It left faint ruts in my driveway from the weight, but I didn't care. I even propped my camera discreetly behind a bush, this time with a hidden battery pack. Then I waited. Chapter 5. Impact. At 6:47 a.m., right on schedule, Karen appeared. The video showed her strolling down the street, dog in tow, hair perfectly coiffed, clipboard tucked under her arm. She stopped at my driveway, looked around, then smirked. She reached forward with her foot and gave the can her usual little nudge. Except this time, it didn't budge. Her smile faltered. She gave it another kick, harder. Still nothing. Now visibly annoyed, she grabbed the handle with both hands and heaved. The thing didn't even wobble. You could almost hear her grunt through the video. Then, crack, the plastic handle broke clean off in her grip. She stumbled backward, dropping her clipboard and letting out a string of words I can't repeat. Her dog barked in alarm. Karen just stood there, red-faced, breathing hard. She looked around to see if anyone was watching, then straightened up like nothing happened. Except I was watching, on camera. She stormed off, clutching her broken clipboard, her pride probably more bruised than her wrist. Chapter 6. The Fallout. 2 days later, I received another HOA letter. But this one was different. Greater than, Dear Mr. Wilson, we have received complaints regarding the alteration of your trash receptacle. Trash bins must remain standard issue and may not be modified to exceed weight or safety regulations. Please correct this violation immediately. I couldn't help but laugh. She was mad. Not because of the rule, but because she lost. I drafted my reply and sent it certified mail. Greater than, Dear HOA Board, my trash receptacle has not been altered in any way that violates code. It remains a standard issue 96-gallon container provided by the city. Any assumptions about its contents are speculative. Furthermore, any individual attempting to move or tip said receptacle would be trespassing and tampering with private property. Please advise your board members accordingly. Sincerely, Thomas Wilson. I never got a reply. But I did hear through the grapevine that Karen had been complaining to the HOA's community Facebook page that someone had set a trap for her. Most of the neighbors thought it was hilarious. Chapter 7. The Neighborhood Turns. That little incident broke something in the neighborhood dynamic. People who had been quietly afraid of Karen suddenly realized she wasn't untouchable. They started standing up to her. Old Mrs. Langley put pink flamingos in her yard again. The Petersons parked their RV in their driveway for the weekend, just like they used to. Even the teenage twins down the block set up a basketball hoop, something Karen had banned 2 years ago. Karen's morning patrols became less frequent. The clipboard disappeared. Her dog walks grew shorter. One evening, I was outside watering my lawn when she drove by. Her car slowed in front of my house. I could see her glance at the trash can, still standing, still solid. She sped off without waving. Victory never tasted so sweet. Chapter 8. The Inspection. A few weeks later, a letter arrived announcing a routine property inspection. I knew exactly who was behind it. Karen had convinced the HOA to do a neighborhood-wide check, obviously trying to catch me violating something. So when the day came, I made sure to be home. A man named Jerry, the HOA vice president, showed up with a clipboard of his own. Unlike Karen, he was reasonable, the kind of guy who seemed embarrassed by the whole ordeal. Mr. Wilson, he said politely. We've had reports about your trash bin. I bet you have, I said, smiling. Care to take a look? He nodded, and we walked to the curb. I gestured grandly. There it is, standard issue, city provided, perfectly within code. He gave it a little push. It didn't move. His eyebrows shot up. That's heavier than I expected. Yeah, I said casually. Guess it's just really sturdy. Jerry smirked. Right. Well, looks fine to me. He signed off the inspection form right there. Between you and me, he added, lowering his voice, you're not the only one tired of Karen's antics. That's when I realized Karen had finally overplayed her hand. Chapter 9. The Crack in Her Crown. A few months later, word spread that Karen had been voted out as HOA president. Apparently, her management style had caused too many residents to complain. The new board, led by Jerry, promised fewer restrictions and more community involvement. The first act of change, dismissing half the unnecessary violation fines she'd issued over the years. At the annual meeting, I even got a small round of applause when Jerry mentioned standing up for fair treatment. Karen, sitting in the back with crossed arms, looked like she'd bitten into a lemon. Afterward, as people chatted and shared snacks, she approached me. "You think you're clever, don't you?" she hissed. I shrugged. "I just wanted to keep my trash where it belongs." She glared at me, her voice trembling. "You embarrassed me." I met her eyes. "No, Karen, you did that all by yourself." She turned on her heel and stormed out. It was the last time she ever spoke to me. Chapter 10. The Legacy of the Concrete Can. A year later, life in Oak Ridge Meadows finally became what I'd hoped for, peaceful. Neighbors laughed more. The street felt friendlier. Even trash day was uneventful, except for one detail. Everyone had started copying me. Not with concrete, of course, but with small decorations, stickers, nameplates, reflective stripes. Our once uniform bins were now proudly personalized, much to Karen's dismay. She still lived here, but she kept to herself now. Her once feared patrols were replaced with quiet morning walks, eyes down, leash in hand. As for my trash can, it still sits proudly at the curb every Thursday, same spot, same solid stance. Sometimes I catch new neighbors looking at it curiously, wondering how it never tips over in the wind. I just smile and say, it's got a strong foundation. Chapter 11. The Final Knock. One morning, nearly 2 years later, I noticed a faint tap at my door. When I opened it, no one was there, just a note on the welcome mat. The handwriting was unmistakable, greater than, "You won that one, Tom." But you'll never know how hard I laughed when the garbage men refused to take it. I chuckled. For the first time, I didn't feel annoyed. Maybe she was mellowing out, or maybe she finally learned respect the hard way. Either way, my can stayed full of concrete, and every time I wheeled my real trash in a second bin beside it. I thought about that first morning when Karen smirked across the street. Funny how a little concrete, and a lot of patience, can turn the tide of a whole neighborhood. Moral of the story: sometimes the best revenge isn't loud or cruel, it's clever, quiet, and built to last. Just like my trash can.